We've been talking a lot about SVOD, especially back towards early summer, and still today there's a buzz around going retro with everything going to AVOD. For example, YouTube moved a bunch of their originals to AVOD instead of SVOD. Why do you think people are looking at that retro model, and which is actually the winner? Is it SVOD, AVOD, or a hybrid, which you kind of brought up the hybrid model there?
Yeah.
Which one's going to win out? Especially with, obviously we know Disney Plus is going to be SVOD, Netflix is going to be SVOD, but what about the other players that are trying to make a dent?
Well, one of the stories you mentioned, Peacock, which is coming out next year, and I think when people heard about what NBCU might do, I think folks probably assumed it was going to be a competing SVOD because they have, and people mentioned some of the content that's going to be in there, and maybe it can command dollars, but it sounds like that may be more of an AVOD play, and HBO Max, which obviously HBO, people think of premium and SVOD, there's maybe an opportunity for Warner Media to do AVOD stuff. I think that the landscape is fairly open. I mean, through the Bright Cove lens, like our customers show up with all sorts of, thinking already gone into what their strategy should be and what the kind of behavior is of their audience. If it's younger, then maybe the kind of, the wallet is different and the kind of targetability of the audience is different. So I think, the bar is pretty high to command the types of premiums that like Netflix can. I mean, I think we pay like 15 or so, right, a month for that. A lot of these other services, if they've been thoughtful, I mean, Pluto you mentioned earlier, they're a really interesting story, and Viacom was very attracted to what they've been able to accomplish in an AVOD model, and the distribution they've been able to get meaningful scale for an organization that's really good at selling target audiences. So there's definitely plenty of room for that.
There's pay-per-view too, right? Some of these guys can start doing that.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, I think it's important that you have options for consumers. Some consumers are fine with AVOD. Some are willing to spend extra just to have SVOD. I think what's frustrating, and if you're a Sirius XM subscriber, you think it's going to be all music all the time, but it's not.
Yeah.
And so you have to be really clear on what is the value proposition. And if you start trying to, I think, encroach on the consumer's trust by slotting in things that they didn't agree to, either pre-rolls or interstitials or other things like that, you have to be careful on the impact of the consumer experience.
Yeah, a lot of people wanted what Hulu did, right? Which was Hulu was one of the first to really do the hybrid model well, right? The $10 a month, no ads or less with ads,
Yeah,
and people look for platforms that offer that sort of flexibility where you can really create offers and packages and change for certain audiences and specials. And I mean, from a technology perspective, something like Hulu, got people thinking and made the demands of a Bright Cove and other players like us, higher because the user expectation is high.
So I'm going to make two comments, and they are going to be somewhat contradictory. I mean, the first one is that, the time of AVOD has come because of the more refined ways that advertising is being served to consumers, okay? So more and more consumers will tolerate advertising if it's more targeted. Okay. Now that hasn't happened as fast as anybody in the industry wanted, because we were talking about that 15 years ago, right? And 10 years ago when I was at Cisco also. But it's finally starting to happen, right? So there is going to be an interesting market to capture in terms of dollars. So that's that's one statement. The other statement is that overall those services do not really generate that much cash from advertising yet. So while there is a great improvement in the technology, it's still not quite immediately translatable into revenue.